just wanted to give a short introduction to Devamrita Maharaj. I could take a long time, but that'll be less from his speaking time. Devamrita Maharaj is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Harekrishna movement. And where to start? One of the things he's famous for is going behind the Iron Curtain in the heavy, heavy Soviet days and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. He also traveled all over Europe putting Srila Prabhupada's books in libraries. So he also is a member of ISKCON's governing body, which oversees our society around the world. He's a significant leader and inspirational voice on that body. Maharaj, in addition to traveling so many places in the world, he focuses much of his time in New Zealand, where he's developed a, what is it, Neo-Vedic ashram, which is many, many innovative ideas about how to present the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, how to attract intelligent young people from all over the world. So he's a very innovative, very inspirational senior leader of our society. We are very fortunate that he's come and visiting us in this small, remote corner of the universe, SanDiego. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Om Jnana-Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Tonight I'd like to speak on a verse from Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and of course we have a summary of that in Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion. Rupa Goswami refers to this verse simply as a well-known statement by Hanuman. So tonight, in this brief talk, we want to focus on the service attitude of Hanuman, the eternal associate of Lord Rama. And we want to look at the service of Hanuman through the perspective of all the mayhem that went on when the coronation of Ram was disrupted. So first, let's hear the verse, a well-known statement by Hanuman, as Rupa Goswami says. Bhava bandha chire tasyai, sprihayami namuktaye, bhavan prabhur aham dasa ityatra vilupyate. Even though liberation destroys the bondage of material existence, I have no desire for liberation in which I would forget that you are the master and I am your servant. This is the essence of Hanuman. Always presenting himself as the eternal servant of Rama, and in the glorification of those who are the exemplars of each of the 9 processes of devotional service. Hanuman represents the perfection of servitude. Just like Parikshit Maharaj represents the perfection of hearing, Shravanam, Shukadeva Goswami represents the perfection of kirtan, chanting the glories of the Lord, so forth. Hanuman represents the perfection in bhakti of the ultimate servant attitude. You know, during Ram Leela, everyone is quoting right and left. This is the right thing to do. This is what duty is. Kaikeyi, the misguided wife of Dasarath Maharaj, the father of Rama, was always citing to Dasarath in that most horrendous scene when, with her mind manipulated by her maidservant Mantra, convinced that the coronation of Ram would be the end of her and her son Bharat. She prevails upon Dasarath Maharaj. You must do your duty to truthfulness. You must serve the truth. Dasarath is saying, how can I do this? I'll be abandoning the people. What about my code of honor to the citizens? All the citizens throughout the world knew that Dasarath Maharaj is the greatest king who cared for the citizens like a father, and who was about to, as a loving father, retire and leave the jurisdiction of the world to the most qualified Rama. So Dasarath Maharaj can't believe he's about to die, hearing the requests of his youngest wife, who had become his favorite. Such are the intricacies of this world. Ram's mother, Kaushalya, had felt a bit pushed aside, even though she was the senior wife. Kaikeyi had become the favorite. And so these intricacies are going on, but everyone is quoting, do the right thing. This is a situation equally as intense as Arjuna's predicament you read the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna is saying to Krishna, how does any good come about this predicament I'm in? Whether fighting or fighting, whether victory or loss, there's no way I'll be happy. If we win the war, my friends are dead. I'll lament. If we lose the war, I lament. That first chapter of Bhagavad Gita shows you what we would call in contemporary terms a psychological breakdown. As Arjuna drops his bow, his skin burning, his eyes filled with tears. Govinda, I shall not fight. This is like the situation Dasarath is in. He can't believe that his darling, his young wife, employing all the shaktis and persuasiveness of a woman who has captured the attention of her husband, even though he has other wives. She's doing more than twisting his arm. She's sinking the dagger in the name of Dharma. You promised. She was very clever. You know about the battlefield wounds, right? Dasarath Maharaj had fallen severely wounded on the battlefield, so much so that he was unconscious. His youngest wife, Kaikeyi, came out driving a chariot to pick him up as he lay on the battlefield unconscious, because she knew when night falls, a ferocious man-eating demon comes out onto the battlefield at night and gobbles up all the unconscious, wounded, immobilized soldiers there. So his youngest wife came out driving a chariot. She's the wife of a Kshatriya. She has those abilities, and rescued him. At which time Dasarath said, you can have 2 benedictions. And Kaikeyi chose to store those benedictions for an appropriate moment. Of course, Dasarath Maharaj could never believe she would employ the benedictions in the way she's doing. But even before she reminded Dasarath Maharaj about those benedictions, she got him to promise 3 times, whatever you want, I'll do. She's so artful. she got Dasarath Maharaj to swear upon his most precious item in the world, Ram. I swear, based on my affection for my son Ram, anything you want, I'll do. She waited, and he said it 3 times. Then she made her proposal, which practically killed her husband. And when he hesitated, she reminded him, Dharma, do the right thing. You promised. You owe your whole life to truthfulness. And Dasarath Maharaj was thinking, I owe my whole life to Dharma in terms of protecting the citizens and giving them the greatest gift they all want. Ram as king, all the sadhus, all the sages, all the Brahmin advisors. I consulted them the day before, unanimously. They all supported my proposal to retire and make Ram king. Dasarath's proposal to retire was very eloquent. He said, I've grown weary in the shade of the royal umbrella. Sometimes those of us having leadership responsibilities in ISKCON, we wish we could come up with some eloquent way of expressing. But Dasarath Maharaj, yes, the shade of the royal umbrella is there, but I've grown weary under it. And now I'm leaving the kingdom to Ram. That's my desire. So he had done the right thing. Yet, his favorite young wife was accusing him of not doing the right thing. How is this message going to be presented to Ram? Dasarath couldn't bring himself to say anything. Kaikeyi knew that. So, Ram was summoned, and he entered Kaikeyi's chambers where his father was, and he noticed, my father doesn't greet me. But still, he was unperturbed. And then he noticed his father's tear-stained face. His father was withered, like he was about to die. Ram sensed, Kaikeyi, have you said something harsh to my father? And Kaikeyi said, Ram, isn't it right? Isn't it your duty to do whatever your father says? She's expert. And Ram says, of course, anything my father says, I'll do. And then Kaikeyi says, even though he won't say it, here's what he has said and here's what he wants. You go to the forest for 14 years. My son Bharat should be coronated as king. Lord Ramchandra was totally unperturbed. Kaikeyi told him, this is the right thing. This is the proper path of morality, of dharma. Meanwhile, what is Dasarath Maharaj doing? He's moaning. But Ram, in a mood of complete detachment, says, whatever my father has said, I will do. Kaikeyi liked it. Yes. Yes. Very good, Ram. This is what dharma is. You understood exactly. His father couldn't speak. His father was just silent. He had already told Kaikeyi, I won't be able to speak this. And she told him, don't worry. I'll repeat what you've said. Her mind was so manipulated by her maidservant, Mantra. It took a while for the maidservant to convince Kaikeyi of this so-called plot to reduce the stature of Kaikeyi, reduce the stature of Bharat. While working her persuasive powers on Kaikeyi, Mantra was praying to the gods. Oh, empower me to say words. And she saw that Kaikeyi was right on the verge of wavering. Because at first Kaikeyi said, no. Ram loves me just as his own mother. In fact, I love him. Everyone knows I'm more affectionate to him than my own son, Bart. But Mantra got to her, all while praying to the gods. So now, the scene has unfolded. Ram has been told what the situation is. You will not be coronated tomorrow. You are sent immediately. Kaikeyi was insistent to her husband. Immediately he goes. And when she presented Dasarath's words to Ram, this is what your father has promised. This is what you must do. And then Ram's reply was, the order of my father is like the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I will immediately execute. I will straight away leave for the forest without delay. And Kaikeyi, yes, straight away. Yes. Now, oh, Dharma, very good. You're doing the right thing. Don't hesitate. Go now. That is the right thing. So Ram had to go say goodbye to his mother. He's on the way to his mother's palace. The people still don't know. They're all rejoicing in the morning. Ram will be coronated, the greatest day. Meanwhile, the word is starting to spread. The greatest disaster is happening. Ram enters his mother's chambers. What is she doing? She's been fasting all day, doing yajnas to pray for the blessings upon her son Ram. She's a little exhausted from fasting. She's looking radiant, just in all white sacrificial attire. And then her son enters. His mother gestures, sit on this royal seat. But Ram just circles the seat and tells his mother, sitting on the royal seat will not be for me. My seat will be branches and leaves in the forest. And then he explains to his mother what's happened. What does his mother say? You must do the right thing. You must take a stand for Dharma. What is Dharma? Your father has become influenced by lust. He's under the control of his youngest wife. Don't obey him. In fact, if you say that your duty is to follow the order of your father, well, how much more precious then is the order of the mother? Think, Ram. Think of the Shastra. You are more obliged to the mother than the father. And then Lakshman enters the scene. He hears what has happened. He becomes transcendently angry, because after all, Lakshman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as Ramchandra, just as Bharat, just as Shatrughna. Lakshman sizes up the situation. Our father has become senile. Our father has entered his second childhood. He has become a puppet in the hands of Kaikeyi. He cannot be trusted. By following his order, we enter into immorality. Lakshman is so angry based on Dharma that he says, it's my duty to kill my father because my father has become a dharmic. I'll kill my father, I'll kill Kaikeyi. We cannot allow this immorality to take over the kingdom, denying Ram his kingship. We can't allow this. But Ram has to forbid Lakshman. Ram understands that Lakshman is speaking like this out of affection for him. Everyone in the whole scene, their minds are apparently skewered. They're all arguing for the sake of Dharma, what is right. Only Ram is showing a clear balance, a clear focus. He's totally detached. He tells them all that what my father says is correct. And there's some bigger plan behind all this. There's the movement of providence. When situations come up like this in which you can't understand why or what's going on, we should accept that there's some greater plan. So I will go to the forest for 14 years. How's he going to convince his mother that he can do that? He tells her, I will come back in 14 years and serve your feet. Just as Dasarath could see that his youngest wife would not be dissuaded, similarly Ram's mother sees that Ram will not be dissuaded. So she gives her consent. Ram's clear focus is service to the ultimate Dharma. Just as Krishna, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, gives the ultimate focus, Sarvadharma Prichacha, Malvekam Sharanam. Abandon all varieties of what you think is Dharma and just do what I want. This is what Ramchandra is doing. He sees the ultimate Dharma and he is exemplifying the ultimate Dharma. That same instruction of ultimate Dharma that Ramchandra gives, that Krishna gives, that same ultimate Dharma is presented by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the most merciful manifestation of Krishna. He says the same thing as Krishna. He says the same thing as Ram. He says, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach the science of Krishna. That is the same as Sarvadharma Pricha. Mamekam Sharanam Pricha. In this way, you can see the consistency in the instructions of Ram, the consistency in the instructions of Krishna, the consistency in the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hanuman's role in all this is amazingly clear. Always service to Ram. He sees that Dharma so concentratedly. There are no intricacies for Hanuman. There's no confusion for Hanuman. Eternally, he simply sees service to Ram, service to Ram, service to Ram. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami, you can read the BBT edition, most exquisitely prepared. Narada Muni is seeking the greatest devotee. He's searching the universe. Who is the greatest devotee? Who is most dear to the Lord? So he goes and finds Prahlad Maharaj, who happens to be visiting one of the lower planets, Sutta. And he tries to convince Prahlad, I've heard from Shiva that you are the greatest devotee. Prahlad, though, like every devotee that Narada Muni interviews in his quest for the dearest devotee of the Lord, Prahlad deflects it. No, it's not me. You've got the wrong person if you're looking for the greatest devotee. If you're looking for the devotee who's most dear. How can you say that I'm great? Look at my situation. I had such brief association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He came at a most dramatic moment, and I couldn't even properly have a loving exchange with him. The scene was surcharged with power and might, and there were so many demigods around. And I saw him just for a brief moment. All right, you can say that sometimes I see him on Sutta, but he comes and goes so quickly. But there's someone who's much greater than me. That's Hanuman. And then Prahlad begins to describe the glories of Hanuman. He's always serving the Supreme Personality of God. I saw the Supreme Lord for a flash. Hanuman was with him for thousands of years. Srimad Bhagavatam says that at the point when Sita disappeared into the earth, Ramchandra stayed in the ordinary vision of this world for another 13,000 years. So more than 13,000 years, Hanuman was with Rama. How was his service? Prahlad describes the narrative. You have to find him because look, his whole body is absorbed in service. With his tail, he acts as the royal umbrella of Ram. Because in the forest, Ram had no royal paraphernalia. The white umbrella that is particularly meant for monarchs in the Vedic tradition, where was the white umbrella in the forest? The white umbrella was Hanuman's tail. The tail was also like a flag, the royal flag for Ram. And Hanuman himself was like a flag. He was so tall that when he would stand next to Ram, everyone would know where Ram was for dozens of miles around. And of course, you know how Hanuman used his tail to set fire to Lanka. He did the most expert service. Yes, he jumped with one bound to Lanka, while Ramchandra, showing that I'm not as powerful as my devotee, floated stones. But Hanuman also, in making that stone bridge to Lanka, he was throwing the biggest boulders in. But then he, with one jump, went to Lanka. When he got to Lanka, he showed even more expertise. He was able to find Sita and comfort her. Every married man knows it's no easy task to comfort a woman in acute distress. Hanuman was able to do that. And therefore, his comforting Sita in the Ashok Grove is described as one of the unparalleled services. And then he fought his way out of the city, killing thousands of Rakshasas, killing Ravana's prime warriors, even a son of Ravana. And he got back to Ram with the message that he had found Sita, and Ram embraced him. We all know how, when Lakshman was apparently knocked unconscious on the battlefield along with other soldiers because of an attack by Ravana's henchman, Ravana's warrior, non-Vedic, attacked in the middle of the night in order to revive Lakshman and the other soldiers of Ram. Hanuman went to get the required herbs. He got to the mountain where these special herbs grew. He was no botanical expert. Which herb is it? I don't know. I'll just scoop up the whole mountain and bring it back. Forget pharmacological studies, herbology studies. I scoop up the whole mountain. Hanuman's service was so extraordinary. Prahlad Maharaj is pointing this out to Narada Muni. How can you say that I am the dearest devotee? You need to find Hanuman. Where do you find him? He's still in this world, Kim Purusha Loka. This is described in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, a part of the material universe. Kim Purusha literally means, what human? They're a special breed, special species. Hanuman is there. Why? He didn't go back to Godhead when Lord Ramchandra emptied out Ayodhya. You know how all the rest residents of Ayodhya went back to Godhead in their self-same bodies. In the 4th canto, you read about Dhruva Maharaj going back to Godhead in his self-same body. Lord Ramachandra, when he left the ordinary vision of this world, took all the residents of Ayodhya back to the Ayodhya in Vaikuntha. But not Hanuman. Why? He wanted Hanuman to stay in this world to benefit the conditioned souls. Sanatana Goswami explains, this is the most difficult service for Hanuman and the most glorious. To be apparently separated from Ram, yet he's taken the order of Ram, as always, as his life and soul. The only way he can survive is that in Kimpurushaloka, he has Gandharvas who are always chanting the glories of Ram. And he has a deity of Lord Ram, and he's always serving that deity. He doesn't see the difference between the deity of Ram and Lord Ram. So he's standing before the deity, offering vegetables from the forest, leaves from the forest. That's the only way he can survive. Prahlad convinced Narada, you've got to find Hanuman. Go to where he is. Narada Muni jumps into the air and flies to Kimpurushaloka. And as he's approaching Hanuman, Narada Muni is chanting the glories of Ram. Oh, the beloved of Janaki, Raghuvendra, Raghunath. Hearing the glories of his Lord and Master recited, Hanuman jumps up in the air and grabs Narada Muni by the neck. Narada Muni is chanting the glories of Ram, and he's dancing. But while he's dancing, he can only move his feet, because with his arms, with his hands, he's wiping the tears from Hanuman's eyes, who's in ecstasy hearing the glories of Ram. And Hanuman has Narada Muni by the neck, but Narada Muni is still dancing. So in this way, Narada Muni encounters Hanuman and begins to glorify Hanuman. Of course, it's another episode that Hanuman, like any good Vaishnava, will divert Narada Muni to someone else. How can you say that I'm so fortunate? Where is Ram? He told me to stay behind. How can I be the most fortunate? If you want to find someone who's really fortunate, what about the Pandavas? Right now, Krishna is having his Leela, his Boma Leela on earth. The Pandavas are with them. That's where you should go. So each Vaishnava is passing off to another Vaishnava. Nevertheless, of course, the glories of Hanuman. We can never get to the end of them. You can never get to the end of these glories. And in this statement quoted by Rupa Goswami, Hanuman is clarifying for us what is the role of pure devotional service. In a materialistic society, we really have little value, or we understand little the value of liberation. But in a Vedic civilization, liberation, the fourth of the Purushartha, is the ultimate attainment for most people. Freedom from material suffering, freedom from repeated birth and death. But Hanuman is saying, I have no desire for liberation if in that liberation I forget you're the master and I'm your servant. Amidst all the mayhem and confusion about Ram's exile to the forest, and each person claiming this is Dharma, this is right, this is truth, this is what must be done, Hanuman's role as the eternal servant of Ram stands and shines so brightly. If there's one thing we can focus on, celebrating this appearance day of Lord Ram, let us think of the service attitude of Hanuman. Lord Ramchandra and his devotees have a special place in Vaikuntha. It's between the Vaikuntha planets of Lakshmi, Narayan, and Goloka Vrindavan, where there's Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan. Ayodhya in Vaikuntha is not as characterized by awe and reverence as the Lakshmi Narayan planets. Yet it is not as free-flowing in loving exchanges as the Lord's abodes on Goloka Vrindavan, such as Dwarka. Technically, Dwarka is a district of Mathura. And of course, the innermost precinct of Mathura is Vrindavan. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, you read about the journey of Gopakumar. He's a Brijbasi, but he's giving you a tour of the highest dimensions of the material and spiritual reality. He's in Vaikuntha, but he's not satisfied there. And Narada Muni sees that. Narada Muni can tell, you're meant for Goloka Vrindavan. I see that you're trying to be satisfied here in Vaikuntha, but you're not. Now's the time to leave for a higher realm in Vaikuntha, because Lord Narayan's not here. He's actually sent me to you to give you this advice. So Gopakumar said, how can I leave the planets of Lakshmi Narayan without Lord Narayan's permission? And Narada Muni reminds him, there are other parts of the spiritual world that are also Vaikuntha. And also, if you don't leave now, while Lord Narayan is away taking care of some devotee, when he comes back, you won't be able to leave. You'll be overpowered by awe and reverence. It's his desire that you go now. And where should you go? Don't go straight to Goloka Vrindavan. Stop off at Ayodhya. That will help you in building up your state of readiness for Goloka Vrindavan. Gopakumar wonders, Lord Ram? I'm a devotee of Madan Gopal. How can I relate to Lord Ram? But Narada Muni tells him something very ingenious. He says, if you're in love with someone and you see even a slight fragrance of the beloved in someone else, you'll still be attracted in some way. Lord Ram has some of the attractiveness of your beloved Madan Gopal. Go to Ayodhya in that spirit. So Gopakumar does that. He leaves the Vaikuntha planets of Lakshmi Narayan, and he approaches Ayodhya in the spiritual world. What's the first thing he sees? He sees monkeys. The monkeys see him, and Gopakumar, he dresses like a cowherd boy. He's carrying a flute. The first thing the monkeys do is snatch away his flute. Like, hey, this is Ayodhya. What are you doing with a flute? Then, Gopakumar sees human-like residents of Ayodhya, more beautiful than even on the planets, the residents on the planets of Lakshmi Narayan. Then, he sees Bharat, and he assumes that Bharat is Ramchandra, so he starts offering prayers to Bharat, because Bharat, he's also the Supreme Personality Godhead, looks so unlimitedly majestic and glorious. And he starts glorifying Bharat. You are the beloved of Janaki. You are Raghunath. Bharat says, wait. I am just the servant of Ram. And he points Gopakumar onward to where Ramchandra, Lakshman, Sita Devi, and Hanuman are. Hanuman sees Gopakumar coming, And Hanuman, hearing Gopakumar's glorification of Ram, immediately jumps up. Gopakumar is offering unlimited obeisances. But Ram, we have to keep in mind that although Ram is so unlimitedly powerful, he's amazingly modest, humble, and accessible. This is one thing we may forget about Ram Leela. Amidst all the power and might of Ramchandra, he's also known and displays such modesty. It's described that during the reign of Ramchandra, even though someone might speak ill, he never took offense, he never retaliated. He was so mild, so modest. So therefore, he saw Gopakumar, this is an Ayodhya in the spiritual world, constantly offering obeisances. So he sends Hanuman to stop him, stop him, stop him. So Hanuman brings Gopakumar to straighten up. And then with one bound, Hanuman returns to the side of Ram, because he can't stay away for long from the side of Ram. Gopakumar stays in Ayodhya for some time. Ramchandra knows, you actually don't belong here. You're a Goloka man, but we welcome you here. It's a long history. Takes up many chapters in Brihad Bhagavatam. But we just want to give you insight into Hanuman's unparalleled devotional service. And remember, what is his most difficult yet glorious task? Following Ram's order to stay in the material world to benefit the conditioned souls. How could he live? He lived by constantly hearing the glories of Ram. He took that order, as always, as his life and soul. Amidst all the confusion in Ram's being banished to the forest, each one quoting, "This is Dharma, this is the right thing to do." The 100% unadulterated service of Hanuman is our beacon. And let us remember that service, that clarity on Ramchandra's appearance day. Thank you very much. I should take questions? You're the boss. Might there be any questions?
I have a question, Mars.
Yes, Mars.
Okay, the measure is this duty, that duty, so many, everybody's got their opinion. But the measure is Hanuman's devotion to Ram. But you meet so many people, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, this, I'm following, we have some of the most vicious fights on the planet are people who are convinced they're executing the order of God.
Yes. Therefore, we refer to the statement at the beginning of Bhagavatam, Savai Purusam Paro Dharma. It's hope of dear hope. Ahoytakiya Pratiyata, you're not must supersede. The highest Dharma. It doesn't say Hinduism is the highest Dharma, or Islam is the highest Dharma, or Christianity is the highest Dharma. No, it says the highest Dharma. Here's the metric. Here's the standard. The highest Dharma is that which produces unmotivated, uninterrupted love. Inatma supersedity. This is the only way the spirit soul will be satisfied. Pure love of God with no material motivation, with no interruption. When there's material motivation, hetu, there's a material cause, then there's interruption. So this is our standard. When persons say, all right, the Krishna people have their way, the Islam people have their way, the Christians have their way, Srila Prabhupada would always say, all right, call yourself what you want, but let's look and see where is the unmotivated, uninterrupted, ecstatic love of God. So that is the metric, that's the standard. All right? Anything else? All right, thank you.
So now we'll have a kirtan till about 7:30, and then serve out the dinner. Thank you very much.